I'm going to say something that might surprise you. If you have a leash reactive dog like Gus, I don't think that training alone will fully solve that behavior. Before you jump into the comments to tell me how important training is, don't worry, I do agree with you. I'm a professional dog trainer and I have tons of videos on this channel showing me training reactive dogs. I even have a free guide linked below that teaches my absolute favorite leash reactivity training exercise. So yes, training is absolutely essential for behavior change. But I think that training is only one piece of the puzzle, and there are other key factors that people often overlook. I like to think about solving leash reactivity kind of like a combination lock. You have to input all of the right codes while also avoiding all of the wrong codes to really unlock it. This sounds complicated at first, but once you understand the code, surprisingly simple. If you've been struggling with your dog's leash reactivity and you feel like you just can't quite solve it, then this video is going to give you 3 fresh things to think about and try. I can almost guarantee that you haven't considered how these impact leash reactivity. When I first mentioned these to Gus's guardians, they were genuinely surprised. But by the end of our 2 weeks together, these changes had already made a huge difference in Gus's behavior. In this video, I'm going to explain what those 3 things are and why they have such a huge impact on leash reactivity training. Let's dive in. Tip 1 is to get a longer leash. This is so simple, but I honestly believe that just using a longer leash is one of the most underrated tools in leash reactivity training. Making just this one change will immediately improve your results, and I'm going to explain why using my clients Louie and Gus as examples. Both of their guardians were making a common mistake by using a very short leash. So just to show you, I'm 5'5", and this is where the leash goes on me that they're using. I want a much longer one. I completely understand the logic behind wanting to walk your reactive dog on a short leash, especially if you have a large dog like Louie and Gus. Keeping them close by makes you feel more in control. But using a really short leash can actually backfire and make reactivity worse for 2 main reasons. First is that short leashes restrict sniffing. Sniffing is a really important natural behavior for dogs. It offers mental stimulation, it acts as social communication, and most importantly, especially for reactive dogs, it can help relieve stress. Some studies have shown that sniffing during walks can lower a dog's heart rate, and other research has shown that offering specific scents to shelter dogs reduces their arousal and increases their resting behaviors. It's believed that sniffing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the part associated with calm and relaxation. Since reactivity is a state of over-arousal, then anything that calms the nervous system better supports training results. To be honest, we do need more proper peer-reviewed research here before we make huge claims, but as somebody who frequently works with reactive dogs, I can confidently say that I have seen sniffing make a big difference. I see a noticeable change in a dog's body language after they sniff, and I've also noticed that dogs that seem to use sniffing as a self-soothing tool also tend to recover faster from their triggers, and they progress quicker in training overall. If I notice that a reactivity client doesn't sniff, I'll often use things like treat scatters to encourage sniffing and build that skill. Let me know in the comments if you'd like a separate tutorial on how to build sniffing into your dog's training routine.
Good boy, Gussie. Okay, that was a lot of stimulation for a reactive dog, so I just want to do a treat scatter.
I think it's really hard for us humans to understand just how powerful sniffing can be. Our primary sense is sight, but dogs experience the world mainly through smell. Imagine if you're enjoying a beautiful view, and then somebody covered your eyes. Pretty frustrating, right? We know for humans that things like deep breathing and aromatherapy help relaxation, and smell isn't even our primary sense. Engaging your dog's main sense is crucial for their well-being. Dogs need to sniff and explore on walks. It's not just fun, it's necessary. However, the most interesting smells are often further off of the sidewalk or trail, so using too short of leash will prevent your dog from accessing those smells unless issue number 2 arises. Issue number 2 is that a short leash is much more likely to cause leash tension. With a short leash, the only way that your dog can reach a smell is if they pull you towards it. There's a saying in dog training, what gets rewarded gets repeated. Sniffing is highly rewarding for dogs, so if they pull you towards a smell, then you're unintentionally reinforcing that behavior. And that means more leash tension more often. Having your arm yanked off on walks is miserable, but a bigger problem is that leash tension also increases the chances of reactivity and can make it more intense. I want to show you a quick clip of my client Brooks. We were working on her reactivity to bikes and kids, and she was completely unbothered by those triggers nearby until I purposely put tension on the leash. Watch what happens. As soon as the leash was tense, she started scanning for that trigger and fixated. And with Brooks, after she fixated, she explodes. Think of it like the fight or flight response. Leash tension makes your dog feel more trapped by their trigger, so they're more likely to explode into a full-blown reaction. By switching to a longer leash and teaching your dog to walk without any leash tension, you'll see a massive improvement in your reactivity training. I've linked my step-by-step leash training guide in the video description and the pinned comment if you want more help with that. So what's a good leash length? I suggest using at least a 6-foot leash, but personally I typically use an 8 to 12-foot leash most of the time. If you have a reactive dog, I also really like styles like this, where you can loop the leash around you, because I find that it really helps people feel confident that the leash won't be pulled out of their hands if their dog reacts, and that helps you to not unconsciously tense that leash when you see one of your dog's triggers. If you're enjoying this video, I would be so grateful if you hit like and left a comment to let me know. Also let me know in the comments if you'd like more videos like this one, where I share kind of overlooked leash reactivity training tips. Tip number 2 is to use the right harness. When I first meet a new client, their dog is typically being walked on a collar. This can be a major safety concern since both long-term or high-impact pressure on a dog's neck can lead to serious medical issues. So one of the first things that I do is I switch the dog to a harness. I want to make sure that the dog is safe before we start training. When I met Gus, I was happy to see that his guardians already had him in a harness, but the style that they were using restricted his shoulder movement, which can lead to long-term physical problems. It also tends to cause chafing or pinching around the armpits, especially when there is leash tension. Since reactive dogs are most likely to put tension on the leash when there's a trigger nearby, that uncomfortable gear can create a really bad feedback loop. The dog sees a trigger and pulls, the gear causes discomfort, the dog starts to associate that discomfort with the trigger, which makes their next reaction even worse, and the cycle continues. If your dog's walking gear creates pain or discomfort in any way, I strongly encourage you to stop using it. By switching to a comfortable, well-fitting harness, you can break that cycle completely. I want to say a huge thank you to Rocky Mountain Dog for providing both Gus and Louie with new harnesses that let them walk comfortably. I've used a Rocky harness with my own dog for many years because they fit well, they're super durable, and they're fully adjustable. You can check out this great fellow Canadian company and all of the amazing products that they offer by clicking the link in the video description and the pinned comment. Thank you to Rocky Mountain Dog for sending Gus and Louie harnesses when I reached out, and for your program that helps rescue dogs get the gear that they need. And just very briefly, if you've heard the myth that harnesses cause pulling, I want to ask you a question. Do running shoes cause you to run?
Shoot! Now I have to run!
Obviously not. If harnesses causing pulling is something that you're worried about, then I encourage you to watch this quick video that I filmed, which I'll link in the video description. And tip number 3 is to fix your dog's harness fear. Most of the reactive dogs that I've worked with do have some level of harness fear, even if they've been wearing one for years. Sometimes that fear is really obvious, like this client who would run away at the sight of his harness. But other times, like with Gus, it's more subtle. He would go stiff and he would lick his lips a lot when he saw it. That stress might seem small and insignificant compared to a big, frustrating issue like leash reactivity, but it can massively affect your reactivity progress because of something called trigger stacking. Dog trigger stacking happens when a dog experiences several stressful events close together and the stress adds up. This can lead to overreactions, even if none of those individual stressors would normally cause such a big response on their own. If your dog's leash reactivity training seems to have plateaued or it just seems really unpredictable, then understanding dog trigger stacking might be the missing piece. I want to show you a video example of trigger stacking featuring Louie. On this particular walk, he got stressed multiple times. A dog barked at him, a man acted oddly as he passed by, and we saw several dogs in a short span. On the way home, he completely overreacted to a bird, something that normally wouldn't have bothered him at all by this point in our training. He was so trigger stacked that even a minor trigger now set him off.
Okay, come here. Louie, it's a seagull.
So how does this relate to harness fear and its impact on reactivity? We need to keep in mind that small stressors count too. If your dog is already a little bit stressed out by their harness right before every walk, that's one strike against them before you've even left the house. We can't control everything that might stress out our dogs, but we can help with the ones that we do know about. And when we do, training becomes way more effective. Here are 3 things that I recommend if your dog has harness fear. First, put the harness on well before your training walk. In an upcoming video, I'll share 3 warm-up exercises that I suggest doing before every training walk to improve results. Even though we're just in his backyard, you'll see that Gus is already wearing his harness during those pre-walk exercises for this reason. By putting the harness on a little bit earlier, it gave him time to decompress from that stress before we left the house. Second, start using 2 harnesses. Use the old one for the daily walks that you still need to go on, and save the new one for proper harness conditioning. This allows you to introduce the second harness slowly and to associate that harness with only good things. And third, and most importantly, start harness conditioning. Harness conditioning is simply the process of helping your dog feel calm and confident about putting on and wearing their harness. I started this process with Gus immediately, and I also had his guardians do an extra session in the evening because I really didn't want to use his old uncomfortable harness. By making the harness unstressful for Gus, it better allowed him to handle everything else that happened on our training walks. If you want my full step-by-step harness conditioning process, then watch this tutorial video next. I'm also going to link Louie and Gus's full playlist right here in case you want to watch more of their training journeys. Happy training! I'll see you in the next video.